that all of you are welcome to join and contribute to all of the talk about that in the presentation about the purpose of the art activity and every single wildlife that you will be painting, who they are and how you can learn from them. I'm Ozzy Sharif. I'm the founder and executive director here at Wildlife Tools. And our mission at Wildlife Tools is to protect wildlife from human-caused threats, to inspire and empower the community and the world to protect wildlife and to value wildlife. All the wildlife that you see up here and out there, featured in our designs, and you see their photographs, have a story. They've either been rehabilitated by a local wildlife rehabilitation organization and by the amazing rehabilitation organizations you'll hear from today. Some live in South Africa, including a rhino that is a poaching survivor. They all have a story. Here's a gorgeous California brown pelican at La Jolla Cove. And the objective of our event here is to again, educate and also inspire you all to learn more about wildlife and to learn the excitement to protect them. The agenda for today, we're having our presentation speaker session, and then we'll continue with the planting and the art activity. List of our exhibitors that are outside. Feel free to stop by their table and learn more about the work that they're doing. Debbie McGuire should be presenting one of our speakers shortly, one of our speakers from the Wetlands and Wildlife Care Center, the executive director, and Lindsay Cobb from the Pacific Marine Mammal Center. Stacy Ash is also presenting here from the Newport Beach City Animal Control. Mariah, of course, is here from the Newport Bay Conservancy. And Mike Wheel, Global Conservation Force. And Mary, she'll be joining us shortly from the Antarctic and Southern Ocean Coalition. I have a few slides now about Wildlife Tools. Some of the focus areas of the programs at Wildlife Tools include combating wildlife crime, enhancing wildlife rescue initiatives, and advocating for ocean conservation, also planting and habitat restoration. Our program areas focus between art, a combination of the fusion of the art, science, and also technology. Wildlife Tools, basically wildlife are the tools, and that is why it was founded to value living wildlife, and each wildlife has a unique story to share. We dream of a world where wildlife thrives untouched by activities in a world where they can be with their with their families and grown up. And this is our arts program, a bit of our arts program. All of this information today, I'm just briefing you a bit of a quick highlight. You can find out more information. We have some of the art activities out here. Our art from education within schools to education from paintings and stories and planting activities, coastal wildlife monitoring and wildlife rescue. Wildlife rescue is a big area, mainly detecting and finding wildlife that need help and getting them to the rehabilitation centers. There's a huge need for that, and any way that you can help, we are looking for volunteers in helping us find basically any wildlife that is injured or needs help, deserves to be found and get help. This is a beautiful California brown pelican during the pelican crisis last year at Corona Del Mar State Beach. About a day, almost a day of guarding her and protecting her. And the City of Newport Beach Animal Control actually came and helped and rescued and took her to the Wetlands and Wildlife Care Center. Beach cleanups. We have beach cleanups for wildlife programs. We've conducted 4 in this city in the last year, 2 in Solana Beach, where they're educational and we're always looking for help with the beach cleanups. They're about cleaning the beach, but also learning about the wildlife that you can help rescue while you're walking on the beach. Planting activities, so we have done events just for planting, focused on hummingbirds and butterflies. Today you're going to have a small little sample. This is our overall event, and planting is a part of it that you will have to notice. And that is a beautiful costless hummingbird that was rescued and rehabilitated by the Wetlands and Wildlife Care Center. That was that one of our hummingbird. Learn more about planting, learn more about coastal wildlife monitoring, different programs that we have. Surf cigarettes, a lot of beach out of distress. These are the beautiful elephants that were going through a crisis last year right here. You can be a lifesaver just by helping us find wildlife. Beautiful sea lion park at Likier Cove. We're also working to develop a team to monitor the wildlife at Likier Cove. The hunting season is coming up, and the sea lions are really, really urgent. The more eyes on them, and the more, at a minimum, what we can do to them to help them to find distressed ones and report them and track and monitor the situation. Ocean arts education programs and meet our jewels, and that's what a lot of the artwork here are. Some of our wildlife jewels meet our jewels. You can learn about their story throughout. I'll keep this presentation short, and it can be a whole day just talking about the story of each wildlife. But just you can check the stories, the QR code, and learn more. The coyote is a resident at Civic Humane Society, Project Wildlife, for example, who was rescued. The beautiful dog was rescued, rehabilitated, and released by the Wetlands and Wildlife Care Center successfully. And what happened to them, the sea lions are at Pacific Marine Mammal Center. Feel free to learn about them at Wildlife with Meet Our Jewel. And Sapphire the Antarctic Krill is one of the paintings that you'll see out here, raising awareness for the Antarctic krill. And Mary from Antarctic ASOP Coalition is going to be talking about their work that we're helping to raise awareness for the krill. Tangi and Solani, the rhinos, Mike will provide you lots of information. He's done incredible work protecting rhinos from poachers, and Tangi's a poaching survivor. And she lives in South Africa. Now she has 5 cats, 5 kids, and also grandcats. Exhibitions, the gowns that you see are part of our Dress for Wildlife program. These are just a few of them. And each piece of the gown is for education, and it mimics some feature of the wildlife that inspired. Art of wildlife, those are the paintings that you see that the vision and the purpose of this collection is that the wildlife is the art. They're the centerpiece of the art. They are the art. And that is that collection. That's a beautiful dog. That's a beautiful elephant shirt from Crystal Cove, who is also on my dress. But that's Arts of Wildlife, is some of these pieces that you're seeing out here. And more Arts of Wildlife collections. Yes, and today's activities, we're going to start with our speakers now, and then fighting, and at any time feel free to contribute and add to that painting a piece of the wildlife. And all the wildlife on that painting are part of the Meet Our Jewels wildlife that you can learn about their stories.
Okay, good afternoon, everybody. I'm privileged to be here and share a little bit about the Wetlands and Wildlife Care Center. A little bit I was going to talk about today is fishing deer entanglement. But before we get there, a little bit of history of the Wetlands and Wildlife Care Center. We actually were formed in 1972. We were the very first licensed rehabilitator in the state of California. At that time, we were known as AWARE, or Alliance for Wildlife Rehabilitation and Education. It was founded by the late Dr. Joel Pasco, veterinarian in Costa Mesa, and the late Craig. And then kind of bounced forward a few years, we had another oil spill in 1990. How many of you remember the oil spill? Yeah, it was terrible. And that's kind of what roped me into this whole whole thing. It was kind of on the heels of the Exxon Valdez oil spill, so everybody had awareness of what was happening to the environment, and it was such a horrible spill. I remember going out there. There was no Oil Wildlife Care Network or anything like we have today. That kind of catapulted all that to happen. And we walked out on the beach, and I was in Huntington Beach, and we walked along, and there'd be this black blob on the ground, and it was a live bird. And it just really pulled at my heartstrings. So since then, and we started raising money for it with the Natural Resource Damage Assessment. We were able to get $196,000 that built what we have now at 21900 Pacific Coast Highway. We're on the corner of Newland and PCH, and we do about 8,000 animals a year now. And for that $196,000, we were able to build this old Butler building in 5,000 square feet of cages. I can't even get a foundation right now, so our old Butler building is kind of at the end of its life, and I need to replace it at a ticket of $4.9 million. So it's gone up a lot since 1995. So fishing gear entanglement. Okay, fishing hooks. And on the display, you can go see them. They cause a lot of problems with our wildlife. They kill a lot of birds and sea animals. Mainly along our fishing piers, we'll see it congregate a lot, and also in our parks. So you wouldn't think that seabirds, there seem to be a lot of seagulls out there, right? And you think there'd be a lot of ducks, but a lot of them get harmed in these parks and on the piers. So if you do see that, you need to call animal control. In Newport Beach, you have Stacy and Nick and everybody that works at the we'll capture them and bring them to us if needed. So we're very happy to have that alignment. So the fishing types of entanglement that we see is the line gets wrapped around the animal, sometimes so tightly around their toes or their feet, they'll actually lose part of their limb. So that's pretty bad. And then they also, this Canada goose, did it show? Yeah. So I don't know if you can see, but there's a lot of swelling and injury where that foot, the twine was wrapped around her. He actually did lose his foot in this bird. So it is something that we have to really, really all fight against. And this next one here that's a hook in a brown pelican's wing. I actually have that hook on our table if you want to go look at it. Pick it up and feel how heavy it is. That was a heavy thing. We had to cut the barb of it off to bring it back out of the wing so you don't tear the flesh. So if you were to get a hold of an animal if you're fishing, don't just rip that hook out because it can tear pouches, it can tear the skin and cause a lot of injury. And not only do we get the external injuries, but we also get them inside. So if the fish has swallowed the hook and the bird swallows the fish, what do you think happens? It goes inside, right? So the first one here on the left is just a regular hook that you see in there, and the second one is one of those, I call them exploding hooks. I'm not really an angler, but when the fish gets a hold of it and then swallows it, it kind of explodes, and then all these barbs go in. So it really attaches inside the animal. Terrible, terrible things. But how can you help? There are a lot of ways you can help. If you do go fishing, please clean up after yourselves. Pick up, don't leave any debris behind for the animals to get caught up into it. Because even if there's this fishing gear or fishing line on them, they can get stuck in a tree. I'm sure that animal control has plenty of stories. Whoops, did I get something? No. Okay. Plenty of stories about animals getting hooked up and hanging in the tree.
Oh, God.
But what we also do is, this is a sample of recycling bins that we have that we build, and we put up 10 of them around. They are, we have 2 at the Huntington Beach Pier. We have some at Greer Park, Miles Square Park, Central Park, Carr Park, and we'd love to get some in Newport Beach. We just need some volunteers that wouldn't mind going around and cleaning them out every now and then. So when You stick them up. At the top, you can put the debris in, and at the bottom, you unscrew it and take everything out. And then we mail it to this recycling center in Iowa. They're the only ones in the nation that do that. And they actually recycle it so it doesn't get stuck in landfills. So I really like that. And then the other things that you can do is just participate in the beach watch, the beach cleanups. Like Ozzy had mentioned, you know, anytime you see that someone out in the county or just for yourself, or if you're just out on a walk, it's a good idea to pick up any debris. Any questions?
Oh.
Yes.
I was wondering what behaviors you would first notice about a bird that is swallowing them, like versus one that's on the outside and notice behavior in its bird. How do you know if they swallow them?
That's a good question. Sometimes we don't know. They might come in for something else and shoot an x-ray and you see that there's a hook inside of them. Unless there's light coming out of the mouth, that's kind of a telltale sign. But sometimes we don't know. They'll just be down and not happy, not wanting to eat. They get real thin because they probably got a pretty bad stomachache with that fish was in there. So, no, that's a good question. Anybody else? Yes, back there.
What is the animal that you hold the most?
The animals that we help the most for fishing or entanglement?
No, just in general.
In general, well, the ones we help the most are most likely orphans. And we get a lot of orphans every year. It would probably be the mallard duckling, number one, and the hummingbirds, number two. They're really high up there. And what happens to the hummingbirds? Well, are you talking later? Okay, so I'll let you all find out from Cindy about why they come in so much. Baby ducklings, they just run out of room where they're going to have their babies, and they'll nest in your backyard if you have a pool. How many of you have that happen? Yeah, it's not fun. And because it takes about 60 to 90 days for the baby to be able to fly and fledge away from there. So they're stuck with those babies a long time. Anybody else? No? Okay. So thank you very much. You can come to our booth. We have QR codes. And we also have our wildlife baby shower, Saturday, May 3rd, 10 to 2. We'll see you there.
Well, hi everybody. I'm so happy to be here. The Civic Marine Mammal Center, we're a nonprofit marine mammal hospital located in Laguna Beach. I want to share this video that gives you a little bit of a better idea of what we're all about. We respond to majority our pinnipeds, which are seals, sea lions, and fur seals. Our little harbor seal pup here, Sydney. We respond to 52 miles of Orange County. That includes all the way up to Seal Beach, down to San Onofre. And we rely on the eyes and ears of the public, people just like you, to help give us that call so we can respond. We see these animals in a variety of places, like on docks or on boats, or on jetties like this, even on offshore oil rigs. So a lot of variety. We've even found an animal on a toilet seat before. So very different spots. These animals can come in with injuries from shark bites, entanglement, don't drink the ocean water just like we don't. They get their hydration from the food that they eat. But like Debbie was talking about fishing hooks, we can see those too in our marine mammals. Captain Hook had over 70 fish hooks in his face. We can also respond to large whales and dolphins. We work under NOAA with our large whale disentanglement team. We also do research. These animals are good windows to what's going on in the ocean. They're indicators of ocean health. So we cover a variety of topics. Every animal that comes in, we can collect samples from and learn from, and also share that research with our education programs, like outreach. We go into the classroom. We can bring our giant inflatable whale and share the importance of whales with the community. We also have give back programs where we do online programming with different hospitals throughout the country to connect and share the importance of these marine animals and how they can share the importance of the ocean with everybody. Because as I mentioned, they're indicators of ocean health. We all rely on the ocean no matter where we live. These are just a few ways you can help make a difference with your voices and your choices, just simple everyday things. And I wanted to thank you all. I'll be mindful of time. You can come visit us when we reopen in the summer. We're in Laguna Beach, and we hope you guys come visit. Thank you.
I'm Stacey Cash. I've worked for Newport Beach for the past 8 years. I worked for the City of Manhattan Beach in the same capacity as animal control for 10 years prior to that. So I've been assisting animals in a professional capacity for about 18 years, and I've always been progressive with it. I never settled for the old school thinking on animal services. Always work with rescues as long as they're reputable. And came to Newport Beach, took me 10 years to get hired here. We have a great staff. We have 2 senior officers, which is Valerie Schoenberg. She's worked here for quite a while, 23 years. And then Nick Ott. Nick does our field supervision for animal control, and Valerie does, we have our own shelter in the city for dogs and cats, chickens, and any type of animals that can be housed at the shelter. If we needed horses or anything like that, we'd probably work with residents or different people that could help us out. Newport Beach is an extremely community-oriented city. We could not do it without our community members. We could not do it without Wetlands and Wildlife Care Center. We could not do it without Civic Marine Mammal Center. Our lifeguards. We fish and wildlife. State parks, our surrounding agencies. So I do feel that as animal control professionals, we have come a long way in the past 2 decades, 3 decades, Anyways, we have Valerie, she's our shelter supervisor, Nick's our field supervisor. We have John, who's been here with us about 36 years, me. Allison is our newest animal control officer. She's on probation right now in training, but she's awesome. And then we have Julie, who works with Valerie and John at the shelter primarily. We are a division of the police department, which is a benefit. Nick works really hard and close with our VA for animal cruelty cases, and we have cases even in this city. So, let's see. We are trained in handling every animal possible. The city has, we handle a lot of wildlife. The dogs and cats, the hardest animal for domestic is the human aggressive dog. And basically once you get past the fear, you're good. So, we are a huge wildlife city. We pick up, injured, ill, too young to live on their own. If we need assistance, we have all of our experts available to us, and they have never fallen short of providing us with what we need. So, I guess I look at 3 officers, 1 senior, field responses. We have patrol officers that will assist our animals. They have very clear instructions. If it's something they feel that they cannot handle, because they get a little leery with animals for whatever reason, they can handle everything human related, but we're on call. So they'll call us in and we'll do whatever we need. We handle all animal-related incidents and concerns in the city. I already said responding to injured, ill. We have a lot of deceased. People might be surprised at how many deceased dogs we find. River jetty, people take them down there, they have them off leash. They think the dog just ran away, and the dog ended up drowning, and we find it later up the beach somewhere. So, let's see, we handle stray, abandoned, loud, dogs off leash, abused and neglected animals. We assist the control officers with aggressive, vicious, or animals that may need a safety net. That is another thing that we do. Humans end up in medical situations. You have traffic collisions. You have people that pass away. We have a safe keep program where animals are safe with us and housed for a shelter, waiting for either the next of kin to get here from another state, or there's no timeline. They're released without fee. So we ensure that there's not additional trauma that is being given to any type of situation that happens, because, trust me, trauma happens every day, all day long. Nick, my supervisor, he is a huge fish and wildlife, with regards to working with fish and wildlife. That's Nick, that was him actually. We had to get a dog that was in an area that was hard to get to. But he works closely with fish and wildlife as far as trying to keep our oceans healthy, and everything with regards to our freshwater ways. We have a few. So some of the wildlife that we handle. I love rattlesnakes, by the way. I love snakes. They make my heart beat. No fear at all. Love them. We handle our birds of prey, our sea and land birds. That's chickens, cottontails, domestic rabbits, horses, elephants, seals, sea lions, opossums, raccoons, skunks, squirrels, coyotes. I've seen a bobcat quite a few years in Newport, which is too bad because I'm a huge cat person. Non-venomous and venomous snakes, turtle, porpoises, bees, bats. We've had a mountain lion one time in Port Streets. So that was the one I do believe that wandered in from Wandering Laguna. They re-released it, and then it decided to wander into us. They re-released it again, is my understanding. I don't have confirmation of that, but I do believe there's a tracker on it. We also have exotic animals that people bring in illegally. Got to kind of figure that out, or occasionally when we have the currents, we get like the wood-footed boobies that end up here from what the currents kind of bring. The ocean currents bring us some strange things sometimes. Most all little creatures though, they're easy to deal with. Most of them are strange, I think. So I think if I mentioned, so we're very busy, if you ever see me out there, I tend to be calm because we are so busy. I might have 4 things going on, and people always think I'm supposed to come on to things that are, like, I don't. I'm calm. I've learned that over time, if I'm not calm, then there's a problem with me. I'll need to work on that. So, between all of us, we have close to 100 years. All of us in Newport, we have close to 100 years of law enforcement experience. And we've gained our training and experience by some of the best in the industry. I always tell people when I'm in the field that I'm a generalist. So I have to be a generalist for everything out there. When I need expert information, I go to Debbie, I go to Cindy, I go to Pacific Marine Mammal Center. The list can go on and on and on. So people ask me questions, think I'm supposed to know everything. I do not. But if I need to find out, I can. So I know what I need to know for that moment, and if I don't, I have someone available to me to advise me for my safety or for everybody else's safety. So, let's see if we have that already. So, available for emergency situations. And I think the most important part of Newport Beach for me is, and I think for all of us as the police department and fire, is that we are a very community-oriented city. This city would not operate at the level that it operates without the people that live here. The relationship that has been built is just incredible with this community. And it's like, I've worked for the Sheriff's Department in LA, I've worked for Manhattan Beach, and I've worked for Newport, Santa Ana very briefly, and I have never experienced a relationship with the community as a whole like we have here in Newport. So it's a very progressive city, and it's a city I'm very, very proud to represent. I know that I work for the city and for my residents and for every tourist that comes in all summer long when we, have so many more people here. So, thank you guys very much.
I'm delighted now to welcome Mariah from the Newport Bay Conservancy, the education specialist.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. So I'm here on behalf of Newport Bay Conservancy. Show of hands, has anyone been to the Back Bay? All right, quite a few. For those of you who have not been there, we are just down the street. We are a wetland and estuary. Newport Bay Conservancy is a nonprofit that focuses on the protection and preservation of the Upper Newport Bay Ecological Reserve. We do that through restoration, education, research, and outreach. Our story kind of starts back in 1864. James Irvine and his partners acquired the land for about 37 cents an acre. So to pay for that outrageously high cost, they began leasing the land to several businesses. One of those being a salt mining group, so they would take salt out of the water and sell it for commercial use. The other being a chicken feed company that would take shells, grind them up, and use that calcium to feed their chickens and get the eggshells to be a little bit stronger. So during this time, a boat called the Likier was bringing lumber into the bay and started nicknaming it Newport. And so it's actually how Newport Beach got its name. Around the 1950s, we had a boom in our economy and in our population here because of the aerospace industry. And so we saw a lot of people starting to develop on the bluffs around Newport Bay. And that really went on until the 1970s, and we saw that urban development expand. The people of this area and in the bluffs that lived there would recreate on the water. They would drive their cars down, they'd water ski, they would bike the bluffs, go fishing. There weren't really any regulations at the time, so it was anyone's game, right? One day, a 14-year-old boy was going his regular route, biking the bay, and went to his favorite spot, and he saw a gate with a sign that said private property, no trespassing. And of course he was upset and went back home and told his parents, Frank and Fran Robinson, you can see them right here. And Frank and Fran were fired up. They wanted to save the bay, and they thought that this area, this land, was meant for everybody's use and everybody's access. And so they went into a 10-year-long legal battle fighting for this space. Over that time, they realized that there was an ecological influence, meaning there's all this wildlife that is there to be protected, and if there was development from the urban company, that all of that land, all of those habitats would be destroyed. Their plan was to turn the bay into a marina, and there would be boats, and to turn it into private property where there was houses and condos. So you can imagine it would take over a lot of space. Being that it's a wetland, it is an important stopover point for a lot of migratory birds. And in California, 90% of our wetlands have been drained and changed into something. And so there is this huge importance to save the bay. being that it was one of the only 10% left over. They began what is called Friends of Newport Bay in 1967, and that has evolved into Newport Bay Conservancy. In 1975, after that major oil spill in Santa Barbara, California was able to acquire the land, and today we, and along with Fish and Wildlife, OC Parks, the city of Newport, share and maintain the land. And one of the ways that we protect it is through restoration. We are a volunteer-driven organization that relies on a lot of people who are dedicated to saving the bay because they love the plants, they love the wildlife. And we go in and we remove invasive plants, some of those being European sea lavender and Algerian sea lavender. We also have a major restoration project in Big Canyon, which is a nice upland area where you can go hiking. A lot of Brazilian pepper trees have taken over that area and pushed out some of our native plants. And so to bring back wildlife, you have to bring back those native plants. And so that's one of our big restoration projects. We also have a nursery where we plant native seeds, and we'll transfer those native seeds and those plants once they've grown to our restoration sites. We do have cleanups from September to March during the non-nesting season, where we can go out into the marsh and pick up the trash that gets brought in through our watershed, through our creeks and streams. We can also go in on our kayaks and pick up the trash that floats on the surface before it goes out to the ocean. One of our major cleanup days is called Coastal Cleanup Day, which is a global holiday. And if you are interested, if you are local, you can reach out to Newport Bay Conservancy. We get about 700 volunteers in the bay on Coastal Cleanup Day. I think it's September 20th this year, so save the date. We also have a lot of education programs, some of them being for our students and our kids through K through 5th high school or college programs. We have a lot of public options and availability as well. So every Saturday we have kayak tours. We have community day every Sunday at the Back Bay Science Center, and that is free to go to. You can touch some of the marine animals that are in our touch tanks. You can see some of our sharks and our fish. Then we pop through our marine life inventories. We have our last Friends tour of the season next Saturday, where we do a free 90-minute walking tour. And this is a historical tour. Frank and Fran started this Friends tour in the 60s, and we still run it today. And so you can go on a walking tour and learn from our volunteers and naturalists about the ecology and wildlife of the bay. We do free walking tours, so if you have a club or a group that you want to do an organizational event with, we can do a walking tour with you. We also have a massive event at our facility at the Peter and Mary Interpretive Center in April called Earth Day at the Bay, where we have a lot of exhibitors, such as today, who come and share all the wildlife with us. We have bird of prey who bring their hawks and owls. We have some live animals, space painting, music, food trucks. So please save the date and show up to Earth Day at the Bay. If you want to get involved in restoration, if you want to become a volunteer and help with our education programs, you can visit newportbay.org. You can sign up for some of those events. Or if you have the means, donations are amazing and help us run this amazing organization. You can email info@newportbay.org with any questions that you have. If you have a picture, an animal you want to interview, we can help with that. Or if you want to learn more about our organization and get in contact with one of our staff. You can come see our booth for more information. I have lots of flyers and more information about saving the bay. Thank you, and if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer.
Thank you all for coming. Thank you for having me. I'm a San Diego native, but I live abroad for the most part these days. Global Conservation Force, we formally started in 2012. We're a wildlife conservation and counter wildlife trafficking organization. The team is based out of San Diego is one hub, Southern Africa is the second, and Southeast Asia as the third. So as an organization, we focus on capacity building in crisis zones for poaching or human-wildlife conflict. So that commonly puts us toe-to-toe with poachers, and poachers being ones specifically in the realm of rhino-elephant habitats. We utilize our conservation programs in 4 pillars. The pillars being focused in anti-poaching as a broad category, which includes canines, our mounted unit, the ranger training, gear, tech, task force operations. We're integrated joint task forces, so sometimes working with 4 or 5 different bodies. Veterinary rehab research or tree conservation, the conservation realm that many people are most familiar with, which has its avenues. We have a large section of education and awareness, everything from community projects to documentaries and films. And then the counter-wildlife trafficking realm is our other big one, which includes investigations, intelligence operations, and strikes or arrests, as well as following up, and of course, court cases. So, what does it look like protecting species at risk from poachers toe-to-toe? Well, there's a lot going on. So from this side of the world, people most commonly just see the violence, which is not the full story. There are many different capacities around education as well as development, which involve setting up spaces that are properly protected and managed and leaving them alone. And that means setting up as big of a space as possible so that the species can thrive. Then employing and equipping locals who are trained to the capacity to deal with that poaching. We do that under the banner of umbrella species, rhino and elephant, since the risk is so high, and they commonly have large habitat spaces with many other lesser species. So when we protect a rhino habitat or an elephant habitat where there's a lot of poaching, we're taking care of everything from the top all the way down to the insects or plant species that may be in that habitat, and we're trying to keep it wild and intact. So there are a lot of species in these habitats that are at risk for many different issues, including habitat loss and poaching. But because of the rhino protection-based efforts and the attention to the entire habitat space with rhino conservation funding, we're able to do a lot for those species that we couldn't fundraise to the level that we need to take care of that protected space. So a lot of this is from the grassroots. This is going from rural local communities just outside of wildlife reserves, selection processes starting with kids and youth groups, all the way up to sports programs, graduating to our ranger academies and field operations. When they come into those academy spaces, they can go into multiple different capacities within wildlife conservation. So that's working in tour operations, our realm, which is anti-poaching and wildlife protection, or they can become lodge management. If they come into our arena, the base level is ranger work, and then it elevates up through management, special operations teams, or specialty divisions of canines. Our fur crew, with the kids and the canines, from our Malinois to our Bavarian Hound, who's 4 on the right-hand side, work in frontline wildlife protection, counter-wildlife trafficking, and conservation research. Many of them do more than one task in the space. So we have Becca on the left, who's working in one of the national parks in South Africa. She's trained not only to track poachers down, but she's also trained to check vehicles coming and going from national parks for weapons, rhino horn, ivory, anklet scales, etc. Thor's trained not only to track humans that are invading that space, this is a different wildlife reserve, but he's also trained to track live pangolins who have been rescued, rehabilitated, and re-released into the wild. He has to do that because the batteries fail in trackers and because pangolins go underground. You can't always find them with the tracking devices. For our ranger-based teams, we have instructors in the US, Asia, and Africa. All of them contact experts with over 10 years experience operationally and in that space of specialty. So we like to build the leadership structure from in the community space and then also overlap with international expertise. So from the basis of all things science, conservation, and wildlife protection, we try to make the rangers the most well-rounded players in their space because they're commonly on their own. So in the space of wildlife protection for rhinos, again coming back to an umbrella species, we are working from a community-based level, utilizing our education programs, our wildlife protection programs, and our counter-wildlife trafficking programs to create hubs of operation, expand those efforts, and then tie more to partnerships so that we can expand the entire operation of the entire region. Ultimately, that involves a lot of wildlife crime aspects to which we're all busy with, dealing in different capacities. It's all over the world. GCF has 24 project countries. We're most heavily involved in 16. So outside of rhino poaching, another one that we deal with daily or regularly is snare poaching. So snares are a subsistence style of poaching that some people have heard about this side of the world, but there's also a commercial level of snare poaching. And that's what we're more concerned about. So in the photo above, that's a commercial level or organized syndicate snare poaching. So we're not taking the food off of someone's plate, we're taking the profit and cash value out of the crime gangs network that's been targeting a wildlife area that doesn't have any protection efforts. Outside of that, within the same realm, there's the connection between the ranger teams and the wildlife, and the domestic animals that we overlap with commonly actually make more ranger partners more long-lived in the professional realm comparatively to just the human element. And so the trust between instructor, ranger, and our working animals like the mounted unit and the canines is really key because many of these spaces have had zero domestic animal education. So it's a great starter. But again, coming back to the entire umbrella of operations, we are taking core species, protecting entire habitat zones, and then trying to weave all the different layers we can for each space due to the level of wildlife crime activities going on in what we call source country, which would be the key habitat where the animals are living. And then we're also tackling things in the demand country where the products are going to or being sold for a consumption-based use. Some of our instructors working on some of the different courses, tackling everything from all the arenas. Instructors work embedded with the teams, and they work on multiple different operations. But their main goal is to lead and capacity build for that space. This is a anesthetized rhino. This is a procedure that was done for a veterinary treatment. If you've been part of any other of the programs with the Z, we had Dr. William Cole on board. This rhino was injured, and these are ranger recruits in their third week, and this is the first time they've ever touched a rhino, a living rhino. This is also the first time they've seen a living rhino. So it's very important to involve multiple layers of community-based conservation as well as veterinary science, hands-on game capture, and wildlife release. And you can see these guys are glowing. The rhino recovered fine, totally cool, just so you know. That said, overall as an organization, we are primarily privately funded with donations, with some small grants, and then we do a lot of events and fundraisers. So if you're looking to get involved, there are more than one way to get involved. To donate to the field, and you can participate in our impact programs as well as our conservation training for all the species we're talking about, and get an idea of how we work from the habitat protection effort, tying in the community with law enforcement between different pressure zones. See our education and community relations, how we connect that bridge between vocational training and professional application, and how we make the cycle benefit the entire local community for proper wildlife resource conservation. And then ultimately, we as this group here can always tackle demand with education, being more aware of what we are supporting, what companies we purchase from, and what we are buying or what companies are buying. Because ultimately, the demand market is what's fueling the poaching activities, and the traffickers are right between them. So, next generation coming out of Vietnam, our Wildlife Warriors program, these kids are leading the way as well as many others. We've had 4,000 students go through our program in Vietnam for our Wildlife Warriors education aspect, and many of which are the next up-and-coming or current lawyers, judges, business owners, restaurant owners, as well as educators. So from this room to Vietnam or Africa, our connectivity is quite large these days, so especially with the internet and travel. So all of you have that opportunity. opportunity to connect and make an impact. And if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer.
Oh wait, now I'm delighted here to introduce you Mary. She's Mary's the program manager at Antarctic and Southern Ocean Coalition, ASOC. Welcome, Mary. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Well, good afternoon, everyone. As Ozzy said, I'm Mary. I'm the program manager at the Antarctic and Southern Ocean Coalition. It's kind of a mouthful, so you'll hear me refer to it as ASOC. So that's what we'll be talking about today. So our mission is to continue to protect the vulnerable ecosystems of Antarctica and the Southern Ocean by providing a unified voice for Antarctic conservation. So if I say Antarctica, some of you are probably imagining a polar bear on a floating ice that's melting, right? You would actually be imagining the Arctic. So Antarctica, we're talking South Pole, we're talking a continent surrounded by the Southern Ocean, as opposed to the Arctic, which is the North Pole, that's where Santa lives, that's where the polar bears are. And that is an ocean surrounded by land mass. So for the rest of this, think South Pole, penguins, not polar bears or Santa. So if you are here, I assume that you likely care about wildlife and know a lot of the impacts that are harming wildlife. But to zoom in a little bit on Antarctica, climate change. I think we can all think there's a lot of ice, there's a lot of warming, there's a lot of climate change. The West Antarctic ice shelf alone hosts the ability to contribute to 11 feet of sea level rise. So it is a big concern, and parts of Antarctica have warmed 2 times faster than parts of the rest of the world. Along with climate change comes changes in weather patterns, and one of the main things that we're seeing is an increase in rain as opposed to snow. And so little baby penguins, they're downy, they're down their plumage, so it's all fluffy. That's actually not waterproof yet. They'll molt that as they become a juvenile, and it will be replaced with waterproof feathers. But with an increase in rain events, we're seeing a lot of these little baby chicks having catastrophic breeding failures simply because they're getting rained on instead of snowed on. And so they're essentially drowning. Along with climate change comes biodiversity loss. So again, with those climate patterns, we're seeing the shifts in where species are living, and we're also seeing what used to be an inhospitable environment. We all think of Antarctica as very cold. It's becoming more hospitable to creatures, and so we're seeing an increase in invasive species as well. In terms of tourism, that is how I first fell in love with Antarctica, but we have seen a 3-fold increase in tourism just within the past decade. So the 2023-2024 tourist season, there were 122,000 tourists that visited Antarctica, which doesn't seem like a ton compared to big tourist destinations. But when you put that into perspective, 98% of those tourists are going into a 300-mile stretch in the Antarctic Peninsula, which is, again, one of the places that's warming 2 times faster than anywhere else on Earth. So with that comes the concern for trampling fragile ecosystems, and especially plastics, and especially black carbon, which is the soot that comes from the ships. It settles on the ice, and it can actually contribute to accelerated melting of that ice. Along with that, we have shipping traffic and gray water dumping. So sewage dumping is highly regulated, but gray water, which is the water you're using to wash dishes, wash your hands, take a shower, do laundry, there's no regulation for the dumping of that. So that can contain a lot of pollutants and a lot of microplastics that are really harmful to the environment. As I'm sure we are all aware of, plastic pollution is an issue that doesn't have any borders and is something facing Antarctica as well. In addition to fishing. So fishing is one of the main threats to Antarctica. The 2 things that are fish, the 2 fisheries that operate are the toothfish fishery. So if you see Patagonian toothfish or Chilean sea bass on a menu, those have come from Antarctica. And then the krill fishery. So krill is one of my favorite species, and we'll zoom in on a little bit today. But krill are the foundation of the entire Antarctic food web. Pretty much every species in Antarctica depends on krill. And the krill is primarily being fished in the Antarctic Peninsula region. And that's that region, again, that's being impacted by tourism as well, and it's warming faster than two times faster than other places on the planet. So krill fishing, interestingly, is not actually used for food security. So humans typically don't consume it as a protein or anything like that. it's primarily used as a nutraceutical. So how many people have taken fish oil in their life? Okay, you have all consumed krill. So that's directly coming from Antarctic krill. It's used primarily in those nutraceuticals and omega-3s, but it's also used in salmon feed. So if you ever get a salmon that's a farm salmon, it's that nice pink or orange color, that's thanks to krill. There you go. I like, you're reminding me of my mother who points at my dad when he gets farm salmon as well. Yeah, so that's all that pinkness, that's coming directly from krill. So krill is not something necessarily that we as humans need to take out of the ocean, but it is something that is being extracted. And in recent years, there's been major concerns about the fact that krill is being taken, and you're seeing super trawlers, industrial super trawlers, taking tons and tons of krill out right next to the flopping whales. So they're directly competing for the food source that's so critical to the Southern Ocean food web. And krill also depends on sea ice for the juvenile phases. So again, that melting sea ice, the impacts of climate change, all of that is then disproportionately impacting krill. So what are we doing? So marine protected areas, or MPAs, are one of the best conservation tools that we have. To pause and just talk a little bit about how Antarctica is run, it doesn't have, a state capital. It is the only continent that is run by a treaty system. So there are 27 countries that have all come together. They have to be doing significant research in Antarctica to accede to this treaty system, and they make decisions by consensus. So everything has to be 100% everyone agrees. And ASOC has had observer status. We're the only environmental NGO that has observer status in these meetings. So our job is to provide a unified voice for the conservation community in these meetings with the countries that are making decisions on Antarctica. So in 2009, the Antarctic Treaty System said we need to protect Antarctica. Marine protection and marine protected areas are a great way to do that. And they committed to establishing a network of marine protected areas around Antarctica. And the way they did that is they broke it into these different domains and started proposing marine protected areas. So in 2009, that little green square up kind of in the 2 area was designated, that is the South Orkney Southern Shelf Island Marine Protected Area. And it was the first ever high seas marine protected area established. So as opposed to the state of California deciding there's a marine protected area off the coast, the high seas are areas where no single country has governance. So that was a huge conservation win. And then in 2016, the Antarctic Treaty System established the largest MPA on Earth. That's the Ross Sea, which is in this section down here. Unfortunately, since then, there have been 4 MPA proposals on the table, but none have been enacted because of the geopolitical tensions that are now taking over the Antarctic Treaty System. There has been a global uprising for marine protected areas. There's a treaty system called the Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework. And that is over 200 nations that have said we're going to protect 30% of lands and oceans by 2030. So that's that 30 by 30 objective. Now the Southern Ocean is 10% of the global ocean. And these various proposed MPAs, in addition to the existing ones, would protect 26% of the Southern Ocean, which would be 2.6% of the global ocean. So it really is an opportunity that the world has to be a leader in that global ocean protection. And we have the framework in order to make it happen. We just need the political will. So what can you do? Be here, learn, share, talk, vote, reduce your carbon emissions, kind of all the things that we think of as typical take actions. But Antarctic specific, you can avoid consuming krill products and toothfish. So if you see Patagonian toothfish or Chilean sea bass on a menu, turn those down. Look at omega-3s that are vegan or based on algae. Those types of things reduce the demand for things, which is in turn going to reduce the amount of fishing. And then you can also support ASOC. You can sign up for our newsletter at asoc.org, or you can follow us on our social media channels, and I'm happy to take any questions. Yeah.
You said that the gray water is being dumped. My son worked there 3 summers in the late 90s, and he said everything that went to Antarctica left Antarctica. I mean, everything.
Yeah, so there's no global regulation right now. Different organizations and different shipping companies or research vessels or tourist vessels have different choices that they make, but there's no global overarching framework or requirement for the dumping of items.
He said the penguins have no natural enemies on land.
except for
And
humans.
he said they were hysterical.
Yeah,
They would want to look, you're like, he said people were like penguin TV.
yeah, absolutely.
Right up to you.
Yeah, they're super curious. Penguins' only predators are leopard seals, which can't survive on land for very long, so they're pretty curious when it comes to them being on land. But again, they depend on krill, and if we're losing all the krill from shipping, climate change, and all the other issues, that's going to disproportionately affect them as well.
Oh, he's got some great stories.
I'm sure. Any other questions? Awesome. Well, I'll be around, and I've got some bookmarks, so feel free to come grab them.
I'd like to introduce Cindy from Wetlands and Wildlife Care Center Hummingbird Rehabilitation, and Cindy has two precious guests for us that she's going to be sharing, and after this, I'll go ahead and talk about our planting activity, but welcome, Cindy.
Hi, thank you. My name is Cindy Gailey, and I'm a volunteer for Wetlands and Wildlife Care Center. I've been volunteering there for about 10 years now, since I retired. And my partner, my mentor, Ann Stratton, is the head of the volunteer program for Wetlands and Wildlife Care Center. And she's a retired ER nurse. And between she and I, we're on call for hummingbird emergencies every day of the year. We take turns being on call. And last year we took in 1,360 hummingbirds. So they're really precious little guys, and we do a lot of work for them. We do the care out of our homes because we have so much equipment. We have incubators, flight cages. We have special magnifiers, medications. So there's a lot of equipment that goes into it, and they get 24-hour care with us. So it's a lot of work and a lot of equipment. Hummingbirds are a protected species. They're protected under the Migratory Bird Act, and they are an important pollinator, and they need our help. Their numbers are declining. There are 5 different species of hummingbirds we get in Southern California. We get the black chin, the Allens, the Annas, the Rufus, and the Costas. Some fun facts about hummingbirds is they can flap their wings 70 to 200 times per second. And they're the only bird that can fly backwards. Their little wings are very complicated. They can fly in a figure 8. And the wings, though, are really hard to fix. If they get a wing injury, unlike a pelican at the center, we can anesthetize a pelican, look at what's wrong with it, and fix it. These little hummingbirds, they're so tiny we can't anesthetize them and look at to see what's wrong. So a hummingbird with an injured wing, we have to give medication, and it's a wait and see game. The other thing that we do is they also can't walk like a lot of birds can. They don't have the capacity. Their little legs don't work like that. They have to hop. So those are some fun things. The male hummingbird just does the fertilization and he moves on. The female does all the work. She builds the nest. She has the baby. She raises the baby. She does all the work. So it's a lot of work for her. And she builds her nest. It's a lot of work. And she uses spider's webs to build the nest. That's one of the materials she uses. And the spider's webs stretch as the babies get bigger so that it allows the growing of the baby. So those are some of the materials that she uses to build the nest. And then the little hatchlings, when they're hatched, they're usually about the size of a raisin. And they come to us if they come to us as a hatchling. They get some special formula, and their main diet is their main protein. 95% of their diet is protein. And protein in the form of fruit flies, mosquitoes, little spiders, gnats in your yard, all that stuff. So we say, try not to use pesticides in your yard so that, these little guys have some food. And some of the reasons we get them into care are they get trapped into, buildings like this. They'll come in a building and they'll get trapped. And they'll fly around, and their instinct is always to go up and towards the light. They never go down and out the door. So if there's a trapped bird that you have, give us a call. And we can either help you get it out, or if it collapses from exhaustion, because it'll use every ounce of energy to try to get out. And so it'll collapse to the ground and scoop it up, and it needs to come into care to replenish its body. And also sometimes they get a head injury from batting around on that seed. So we get a lot of trap birds, calls for trap birds. We also get a lot of calls for window strikes, those reflective windows. They think they're flying into a tree, bam, they fly right into a window. That gives them traumatic head injuries, spinal injuries, and they get concussed. Sometimes they fly off right away, but they'll sit in a branch and they won't even remember to eat. So they're just don't have their wits about them. So any bird that hits a window needs to come into care. Another thing that we get are cat-caught hummingbirds. And cat saliva is toxic to all birds. So any bird that's been in a cat's mouth needs to come into care. They need to be on antibiotics. And a lot of times the cats will rip some of their feathers off so they can't thermoregulate, they can't keep themselves warm. They need to be in an incubator. The other thing that we get are tree trimming. These little nests are so tiny, I'll pass around a nest, and you can feel it and look at it, and their little eggs are the size of a Tic Tac, but their little nests are so camouflaged and hide in the trees, you can't see them. So we ask that you don't trim trees until the end of fall, because hummingbirds nest from February to about mid-July, but then other birds nest all through September. So it's important not to do any tree trimming right now. So those are some of the reasons that we get hummingbirds into our care. And I brought two little birds today with me. So one, I've got a male Anna's here for you to see. And he was a head injury, and he can't use his left foot. So I've got different perches in there. He's learning how to perch. He's feeding real well now and eating real well. The male with an injured foot we can release back into the wild. The female with an injured foot, it's a little more complicated because they need to be able to stamp down their nest to make their nests. So this little guy's going to be releasable. He's doing really well. And then the other bird I brought in is a little Allen's hummingbird as well, but it's a female. And the males have the big bright gorget underneath their chin. So that's how you can tell male from female. The females have a little, we call it a little ruby necklace. They just have a little spot of color on their throat. But the males are, that's how they attract the females. So the female I brought in, she is a wing injury. And so she's on anti-inflammatory pain medication. And we're hoping that, it's going to, like I said, we can't really do a lot for the wing injury. So it's just a wait and see with her. So I brought a nest for you to see and some eggs that you can pass around too. But these little guys, you can come on up and see them if you'd like. And you can touch this little nest and you can see how soft it is and how they decorate them. And you can touch them and see how they make them out of spider's webs and how they're all stretchy and cozy. Any questions?
How do you give them their pain medication?
You can't have too much caffeine. There's a very specific way. For the pain medication, it's a real thin liquid. You put it in their little nostril or nard. The antibiotic is like that. So we either put it in a syringe or dilute it into some other formula. And we have a special formula for them. So we can do it that way. Be very carefully. Yeah, that's a wise. You can touch birds. They don't have a yeah, you can touch. Yeah, not a problem touching them. They're very fragile. Yeah. Those are real eggs. Yeah, they're the size of a Tic Tac. Any other questions? And that's why you guys are planting today. Yeah, wonderful plantings. And so,
Anybody want to volunteer? Just contact the Wetlands and Wildlife Care Center if you want to talk about it.
and if you have hummingbird feeders, we want you to make your own nectar. And it's 4 parts water to 1 part plain old white table sugar. Don't buy the nectar or anything because that's